I am here to challenge your English. Are you ready? Let's see how many questions you can answer. Hello, my name is Maddie from POC English, and in this video I have 30 questions that I am going to ask you, and I want to see how many of them you can answer correctly. I have divided this test into 3 parts of beginner A1, A2, intermediate B1, B2, and advanced C1, C2. For each question, you will have 5 seconds, but don't worry, if you need more time, just pause the video, that's okay. In addition, I will explain every question, so it's not just a test, but you will also learn a lot of things. Now, before we start, don't forget to download my free English booklet, the 2nd edition, by clicking on the link above my head. It's completely free and it consists of all my new lesson summaries. Alright, ready? Let's begin the test and we will start with the beginner A1 level. Question 1. I spoke to she, he, her. I spoke to her. Let's talk about pronouns. Pronouns replace nouns in a sentence. We can have 4 different kinds of pronouns: subject pronouns, object pronouns, reflexive pronouns, and possessive pronouns. In this case, let's talk about subject and object pronouns. If the noun you are trying to substitute with a pronoun is the subject of a sentence, you should use a subject pronoun. If the noun is the object of the sentence, you should use object pronoun. Now, what is a subject pronoun and what is an object pronoun? Subject pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Object pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. Now the question is, how do you understand whether the noun you are trying to replace is the subject or the object of the sentence? Pay attention to the verb of the sentence. If the noun is after the verb, it is the object of the sentence. If it is before the verb, it's the subject. Now look at the sentence again. I spoke to, the verb is spoke. The gap is after the verb, so it's object. Now, out of the 3 options, she and he are subject pronouns. Only her is an object pronoun. Let's move on to question number 2. What time does she up? Get, getting, or got? The answer is get. But why? Because this is a present simple sentence. But what is a present simple sentence? A present simple is a subject plus verb. I play, you play, we play, they play. But remember, for the 3rd person singular he, she, and it, we need to add an S to the verb. He plays, she plays, it plays. If you want to make a question, you can do it with do. Do you play? Do I play? Do they play? Do we play? But for he, she, and it, we start the question with does. Does he play? Does she play? Does it play? And remember, when we have does, the verb is simple without S. Now look at the sentence. What time does she? We need a simple form of the verb get. That is get. What time does she get up? Now let's move on to question number 3. I have a class 3 o'clock. In, on, or at. At 3 o'clock. But why? Whenever we talk about time, we use the preposition at. At 3 o'clock, at 5 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, at plus time. Let's go to question number 4. I was born January 25, 1995. In, on, or at. This is quite interesting. Pay attention. If we want to talk about a year, we use the preposition in. I was born in 1995. If you want to talk about a month, use the preposition in again. I was born in January. If you want to talk about one day, use the preposition on. I was born on 25th. Now, look at the question again. I was born January 25, 1995. We have all the three of them. There is a day, there is a year, and there is a month. So what do we use? Well, pay attention. January 25, 1995 is one day. So we say on because it is one day. It's not a year, it's not a month, it's one day. Let's move on to question 5, the last question of A1. Girlfriend left him. His, he, or him. Again, let's talk about pronouns. Subject pronouns were I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Object pronouns were me, you, him, her, it, us, and them, right? Now in this case, do we need an object pronoun or a subject pronoun? None of them. Even though the sentence begins with this pronoun, it is not the subject. It is neither the object of the sentence. Why? Because after the gap, we have girlfriend. Whose girlfriend? We're talking about possession. So this should be something related to possession. And in this case, we need to use possessive adjectives. But what are possessive adjectives? My, your, his, her, its, our, and their. Now, look at the answers we have. He is a subject pronoun. We don't need it. Him is an object pronoun. We don't need it. But his is a possessive adjective. This is what we want. That was the end of beginner A1 level. Let's move on to beginner A2 level and let's continue with question 6. He is arriving London at 5 and he will arrive the meeting by 6. In, at, in, in. After arrive, we can use both prepositions in and at. But it depends on where we are going to arrive to. If you want to talk about a city or a country, say arrive in London, arrive in England. But if you are talking about a place, say at. Arrive at the cinema, arrive at the meeting. Now in this case, the first one talks about London, which is in. The second one talks about a meeting, which is at. So in, at. Moving on to question number 7. Book is it? Whose, and house? The answer is whose, but why? Let's talk about possessive adjectives. This is a phone, but this is my phone. Okay? If you want to say something belongs to someone, you can use possessive adjectives before that object. My phone, your phone, his phone, her phone, its phone, our phone, their phone. But if you want to ask a question about possession, for example, you find the phone and you say, excuse me, what should you ask? You can use the word whose. Whose phone is this? Now pay attention, this is sometimes very confusing for students because whose and whose are pronounced in the same way, but the second one with an apostrophe stands for who is. So that is not correct. Let's move on to question number 8. We don't have to bake a cake. Enough milk, milk enough. Enough milk, but why? Pay attention, we can use the word enough in 3 different ways. Enough plus a noun, for example, enough money or enough milk. Adjective plus enough, for example, strong enough. I am strong enough to do this. Verb plus enough. You have studied enough. Go and have fun. So in the case of this question, we have the word milk, which is a noun. So enough goes before the noun. Enough milk. Let's move on to question 9. He is his brother. But his brother is taller, more intelligent, more tall, intelligenter, more tall, more intelligent. And the answer is taller, more intelligent. But why? These are comparative adjectives. Comparative adjectives are used to make a comparison between two things, A and B. Now, if your adjective is short, the comparative adjective would be adjective plus er than. For example, short, shorter than, small, smaller than, tall, taller than, long, longer than. However, if the adjective is long, the comparative adjective is more adjective than. For example, more intelligent than, more dangerous than, more expensive than. Now, in the case of this question, the first adjective is tall. It's short, right? It's a small adjective, so we say taller. The second one is intelligent. It's a long adjective, so we say more intelligent. And let's get to question number 10, the last question of A2 and the final question of the beginner level. Let's see. I hope you do in your test. Good, awesome, well. I hope you do well. But why? After verbs, we use adverbs. All right? The three options we have are good, awesome, and well. Good and awesome are adjectives. Only well is an adverb. But why do we need to use an adverb? Because the verb do is before the gap. So the gap needs to be an adverb, well. Well, this is the end of the beginner level test. How many correct answers do you have? If you have more than 8 correct answers, so 9 or 10 correct answers, keep on with the rest of the video because your level is higher than beginner. But if you have less than 8 correct answers, your level is beginner. And to improve your level, you can join my beginner English course. As my YouTube subscriber, I am giving you a $20 discount code, ENG20. You can use this code to get an extra $20 discount when you register in the course. To learn more, to register, and to use your discount, you can simply click on the link above my head, go to my website, and read all about the beginner course. Now, let's carry on with the intermediate level of this test. The first part is intermediate B1 level. Let's get to the first question. Whenever I see her, I sad. Feel, will feel, or felt. I feel sad. But why? Let's talk about conditional sentences. A conditional sentence is a sentence that has two clauses, the if clause and the main clause. Now, depending on the type of the conditional sentence, the tenses of the two clauses can differ. Let's talk about zero conditional. A zero conditional sentence is a sentence that we use when we want to talk about something that is always true or that happens all the time. In that case, we use zero conditional, which is if plus present, and the main clause is again present. For example, if you heat water, it boils. You see, the two clauses, if clause and the main clause, are in present tense. Now, a very important point. In zero conditional sentences, you can replace if with when or whenever. So you can say, when you heat water, it boils, or whenever you heat water, it boils. Now look at the question. Whenever I see her, so the second part of this question should be present. I feel sad. Moving on to question number 2. If you free tonight, we will go to the movies. Or will be where? If you are free tonight. Again, this is a conditional sentence. What type of a conditional sentence? This is first conditional. We use first conditional to talk about the result or consequence of our action now in the future. How do you make a first conditional sentence? If plus present, and then the main clause is future, usually with will. Now, if you look at the question, the second part of the sentence, which is the main clause, is we will go. We have a will, so the first part should be simple present. If you are free tonight. Question number 3. Hundreds of people in this factory every year are employed, employ, or were employed. Are employed, but why? This is a passive sentence. Let's talk about passive voice. What is a passive sentence? A passive sentence is a sentence in which we do not know the agent of the sentence. The agent is the subject of the sentence. We don't know who did it. For example, look at this question. Hundreds of people are employed. Who employs them? We don't know and we don't care. This is passive. But how do you form a passive sentence? If you want to form a present simple passive or a past simple passive, this is the formula. To be plus past participle. Now, to be can be am, is, are, or was, were, depending on the tense, present or past. Now, look at the question again. At the end of the question, we have every year. So it's not past, it's present. In the gap, we need to use am, is, or are. We're talking about hundreds of people. It's plural, so are employed. Moving on to question number 4. Sometimes nothing is better than doing something stupid. Doing, to do, do. Doing, but why? Pay attention. Whenever the subject of a sentence is a verb, the verb needs to be gerund. What is gerund? Gerund is a verb with ing. The subject of the sentence is do, so we need to use the gerund form, doing. Sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something stupid. Question number 5, the last question of B1 level. That's the boy. Father is rich. Who, whose, or whose? That's the boy whose father is rich. But why? Let's talk about relative clauses. What is a relative clause? A relative clause is a clause or a sentence that gives more information about a noun in another sentence. A relative clause can give extra information about a person, place, a thing or object, or even about possession. A relative clause begins with a relative pronoun. Now, if a relative clause wants to describe a person, the relative pronoun is who. If it wants to describe a place, the pronoun is where. If it wants to describe an object, the pronoun is which. And if it wants to talk about possession, the pronoun is whose. Now look at the question. That's the boy. Father is rich. We're talking about two people, the father and the boy. The father belongs to the boy. So we are talking about possession and we should use the pronoun whose. That was the end of B1. Let's move on to intermediate B2 and continue with question number 6. If I didn't know you, you were crazy. Thought, would think, will think. Would think, but why? Let's get to second conditional sentences. We use the second conditional sentence to talk about hypothetical situations now, or imaginary situations now, or unreal situations now. How do you make a second conditional sentence? If plus simple past, comma, would plus the base form of the verb. Now look at the question. If I didn't know you, so if plus simple past, the second part should be would plus base form. I would think that you were crazy. Let's move on to question 7. You, so easily, if you had trained more. Wouldn't have lost, wouldn't lose, or won't lose. Wouldn't have lost. But why? Let's talk about third conditional sentences. We use the third conditional sentence to talk about a hypothetical, imaginary, or unreal situation in the past and its result in the past. How do you form a third conditional sentence? If plus past perfect, comma, would have plus past participle of the verb. Now pay attention, past perfect is had plus past participle. Now, look at the if clause in the question. If you had trained, this is past perfect. So the other clause should be would have plus past participle of the verb. But pay attention to the meaning of the sentence. The meaning of the sentence requires a negative verb here. Wouldn't have lost. Moving on to question number 8. Don't worry. The building is destroyed, but everyone has been saved, have been saved, or have saved. Has been saved. But why? This is a very interesting question. Again, this question is a passive sentence. But what kind of passive? This is present perfect passive. Look at this sentence. They have delivered the newspapers. This is a present perfect sentence, right? And we know who did this. They did this. So this is active. It's not passive. How do you make it passive? Remove the subject, they. Use the object at the beginning of the sentence, the newspapers. Use the formula for the present perfect passive. But what is the formula? It's have, has, plus been, plus past participle of the verb. The newspapers have been delivered. Why have? Because newspapers, plural noun, right? Now look at the question again. Don't worry, the building is destroyed, but everyone. So we need to use passive of the present perfect. Everyone has been saved, right? Now, have been saved or has been saved? This is another interesting point. In English, everyone, someone, anyone, and no one, these are all singular words. So you need to say everyone has, anyone has, no one has, someone has. Therefore, the correct answer to this question is has been saved. Now, let's move on to the next question. Question number 9. I was tired of driving, so I stopped to smoke. Smoking for smoke. I stopped to smoke. But why? This is very interesting. After the verb stop, you can use both gerund or infinitive. Stop to do something. Stop doing something. But be careful, the meaning is totally different. If you stop to do something, you stop, you do it, and then you get back to whatever you were doing before. But if you stop doing something, you stop it. You won't do it anymore. That's it. You have stopped doing it. Now, if you stop to smoke, it means you stop, you light up a cigarette, you smoke, and then you keep going. But if you stop smoking, it means you will never smoke again. Now pay attention to the question again. I was tired of driving, so I stopped. He was driving, then he got tired, so he stopped. Why did he stop? Did he stop to make a decision for his life and quit smoking? Or no, he stopped, he lit up a cigarette and he started smoking. That's the second one. So I stopped to smoke. And question number 10, the last question of B2 and the final question of the intermediate test. When we were at school, we wear a uniform. Must, should have, had to. The answer is had to. But why? Imagine this. If there is a rule at school saying no one can come without a uniform, what does it mean? Can you go without a uniform? No, that's a rule. That's a strong obligation. They won't let you in. When you want to talk about strong obligations now, in the present time, you use must. You must come with a uniform. You must wear a uniform. But the past of must is had to. Had to. Be careful. The past of must is had to. And had to is used to talk about strong obligations and rules in the past. You must wear a uniform. You had to wear a uniform. That's the end of the intermediate test, B1, B2. So, how many correct answers do you have? If you have more than 8 correct answers, continue with the rest of the video. But if you have less than 8 correct answers, your level is intermediate. And you can improve your level by joining my intermediate English course. Don't forget, as my YouTube subscriber, you can use your discount code ENG20 and get an extra $20 discount. To learn more about the Intermediate English course, click on the link above my head. Now, things are about to get real serious. Advanced students, are you ready? Let's challenge your English and let's see how many of the next 10 questions you can answer correctly. Let's begin with question number 1. This is C1 level. The burglary took place in daylight. Wide, broad, or clear? Broad daylight, but why? All the 3 options make sense, right? A daylight can be broad, it can be wide, because wide and broad are synonymous, right? And it can also be clear. But why only broad? Because it is a collocation. What is a collocation? Collocations are the way in which words sit together in a natural way. So if you say broad daylight, it makes complete sense and it sounds natural. But if you say wide daylight, it's weird. It sounds incorrect, and it is incorrect because it is not the right collocation, broad daylight. Moving on to the second question. Investing your money, stocks, is better than spending it, luxuries. In, on in, on. This was quite simple, right? You invest in something, you spend on something. So the answer is in, on. Question 3. We might be late. We're in traffic jam. Blocked, stuck, or stopped? We're stuck in traffic jam. But why stuck? Why not blocked? Why not stopped? They all make sense, right? Again, this is a collocation. To be stuck in traffic. That is the collocation, and you have to use it that way. Let's move on to question number 4. I live in London. So I'm used to on the right side of the road. Drive, driving, having driven. Driving. But why? Pay attention. We have used to, we have be used to, and get used to. These are different. If you used to do something, you did it in the past, you're not doing it anymore. After used to, we use the base form of the verb. I used to smoke. I don't anymore. After be used to and get used to, which talk about something becoming your habit or you getting accustomed to something, we use gerund. Be used to doing something and get used to doing something. Now, look at the question again. I lived in London, so I am used to driving. Question number 5, the last question of C1 level. Rarely here in August. It rains. Does it rain? It is raining. Rarely does it rain here in August. But why? What kind of a sentence is this? This is inversion. What is inversion? Inversion is the act of changing the structure of a sentence. Now, there are many different kinds of inversions, but a very common one is an adverb inversion. But how do you do it? Look at this sentence. It rarely rains here. If you want to make an adverb inversion to this sentence, put the adverb at the beginning of the sentence. So you start the next sentence with rarely. Now, what are you left with? It rains here, right? Make a yes-no question out of it. It rains here. Does it rain here? But instead of the question mark, put a full stop. What do you have? Rarely does it rain here. This is an inverted sentence. But here's a question. Why on earth would you do this to a sentence? Why would you make it more difficult? Well, that is the beauty of English. By inverting a sentence, you make it more formal, more advanced, and more polite. But pay attention and be careful. Don't overuse it because it will sound unnatural. Okay, that was the end of C1 level. In my opinion, it was quite an easy test for C1, right? So, for the next 5 questions, which are C2, I'm going to raise the bar. For the next 5 questions, which are C2 level, we are going to do a use of English test. But what does it mean? I will give you a sentence with a gap, and I will give you a word. You have to use the correct form of the word in the gap. Let me give you an example before we start the test. This is an example. It's not part of the test. Look at this. They couldn't solve the issue. They handled it. And the word is effect. Now, what is the correct form of effect to be used in this gap? Well, let's see what we need in this gap. Before the gap, we have a verb, handle. After the verb, we need an adverb. What is the adverb of effect? It's effectively, right? But that is not the correct answer. Why? Look at the beginning of the sentence. They couldn't solve it. If they couldn't solve it, then it couldn't have been effective, right? What is the negative of effectively? Ineffectively. That is the correct answer. That was an example of use of English. Now let's get to question 6, the first question of C2. She showed her deep by slamming the door in our faces. And the word is approve. Okay, what do we need in the gap? Before the gap, we have her, which is a possessive adjective. So after her, we expect a noun. What is the noun of approve? Approve is a verb. What is the noun? Approval. But that's not the answer. Why? Look at the sentence. She showed her deep by slamming the door in our faces. By slamming the door in our faces. Is she showing her approval? No, quite the opposite. What is the opposite of approval? Disapproval. That's the answer. Question 7. The police tried to evict the 3 from the building. And the word is occupy. All right, before the gap we have the, which means in the gap we need a noun. Occupy is a verb. What is the noun? Occupant. But that's not the answer. Why? Because we have the 3, so it should be plural. The 3 occupants. Occupant means resident, somebody who lives somewhere. Okay, moving on to question 8. There have been a number of female in the field of aircraft design. And the word is innovate. What do we need in this gap? Before the gap, we have an adjective, female. So we need a noun. Now, innovate is a verb. What is the noun? Innovation, right? But there is also another noun. A person who innovates is an innovator. So innovation and innovator, both of them are nouns. But which one do we need here? Well, innovation is not gender specific. Innovation does not have male or female. But innovator, which means the person who innovates, can be male or female. Therefore, we need innovator. But that's not the answer. Why? Because we have a number of female. So we need a plural noun, innovators. That is the correct answer. Let's move on to question 9. It was rapidly becoming that we would have to make changes to our plans. And the word is appear. This is quite simple. After the verbs become or get, we can use an adjective like become angry or become sad or get angry or get sad, right? Now here we have becoming. And after that, we need an adjective. What is the adjective of appear? Because appear is a verb. The adjective is apparent. Apparent. So it was rapidly becoming apparent that we would have to make changes to our plans. And moving on to question number 10, the last question of C2 and the final question of the advanced test. Pay close attention to this one. Jack is a really person. And the word is opinion. Clearly, we need an adjective to describe Jack. What is the adjective of opinion? Opinionated. Opinionated. But what does it mean? An opinionated person is someone who is certain about their beliefs and often expresses them. So Jack is a really opinionated person. That was the end of the advanced test. Now tell me, how many correct answers have you had? If you have more than 8 correct answers, your level is advanced. You don't need to do anything else. You are a proficient English user. But if you have less than 8 correct answers, you can improve your English by joining my advanced English course. And don't forget, you can use your discount code ENG20 and get $20 extra discount as my YouTube subscriber. To find out more, click on the link above my head. That's it, guys. I hope you've enjoyed this lesson. This has been quite a difficult video for me to record, so I hope you have gotten the most out of it. Don't forget to write down, take notes, and practice. See ya!